Good evening and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My wonderful co-host, Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour right at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's been such a great space for us to meet up every week that we've just kept on doing it. We're really enjoying all the wonderful writers, and we've been meeting and all the wonderful stories we've been hearing. So welcome back to those of you returning, and welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. As always, we have two writers. Tonight's readers are Meg Elison, a fan favorite, returning, and B. Morris Allen, your next fan favorite, here for the first time. If you are fortunate enough to help others during this time, please consider a donation to tonight's featured nonprofit selected by the authors. Those are People's Breakfast Oakland and Dove Lewis. Meg Elison is reading for People's Breakfast Oakland. Following in the footsteps of the Black Panther Party, People's Breakfast Oakland is a free breakfast program that serves Oakland's houseless community. In addition to hot meals, PBO provides hygiene products, tents, clothes, shoes, mental and physical health services, and a host of other resources aiming to meet the material needs of houseless folks. This was the first program of People's Programs, and since 2017, it has provided over 30,000 hot meals to the community. You can learn more at peoplesprograms.com/PBO. B. Morris Allen is reading for Dove Lewis. Dove Lewis is an emergency hospital for animals, but it's also more than that. It's a hub for specialized care, a nonprofit haven for animals in need, a member of Oregon's community, and a resource for veterinarians worldwide. Dove Lewis never turns away an injured stray animal. Services include education, veterinary care, and a blood bank. You can learn more at dovelewis.org. That's Lewis like Lewis and Clark, L-E-U. If you are here on Zoom, feel free to leave your camera on. It can be really nice for our readers to see you. And absolutely chime in on the text chat if you like on the right on Zoom. If you're joining us on Facebook, we are delighted, but we may not see your messages in real time. So please just be understanding of that. And our first reader tonight is B. Morris Allen. B. Morris Allen is a biochemist turned activist turned lawyer turned foreign aid consultant, and frequently wonders whether it's time for a new career. He's been traveling since birth and has lived on 5 of 7 continents, but the best place he's found is on the Oregon coast. When he can, he makes his home there. In between journeys, he works on his own speculative stories of love and disaster. His story collection, Chambers of the Heart, came out in April 2022. Find out more on Twitter at B. Morris, M-O-R-R-I-S, Allen, A-L-L-E-N, and on the web at bmorrisallen.com. Morris, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We are delighted to have you. I understand you have a few short pieces for us tonight.
I have 2 stories. One, a new one from that anthology, or collection that just came out, Chambers of the Heart.
Oh, what a wonderful cover. Show us the cover again. Oh, that's beautiful. Sorry, please go on.
All right. So, Chambers of the Heart. Despair and ecstasy are the simplest. Ecstasy is the small and cozy room of a cottage that looks out on a broad meadow in the forest. In the spring, elk come to pasture and to mate, and the wildflowers bloom on every side. In the fall, mist dances in silver swirls framed by gold and bronze and copper trees. It is always spring or fall. Despair is a vast dark hall of low ceilings and small windows. In winter, snowdrifts sometimes cover the windows so that they are only squares of gray against black stone. In the summer, shafts of hot, bright light do nothing to warm the room and only blind us to the room's darkness, so that we must carry candles to the master's hard throne. It is always winter or summer. Ecstasy and despair are the simplest chambers and the worst, and they are where the master spends his time. Today, though, I am pleased to find him in the low hall of longing. He sits by the fire, a book spread open on one leg, his eyes on the soft river of cloud beyond the window and the shining peaks in the distance. Sunset is beautiful, he says, the way it paints the snow of distant mountains with crimson, I suggest. It is always sunset in the hall of longing, but our master is no poet. With crimson, he sighs and raises his book. The poet Lanois says that the sun's bright ardor brings a blush and a glow to the earth's shy breasts. It sounds better in Clinician, but I fear Lanois was a man desperately in need of a lover. He should not have become a monk. He puts the book back down. I have never seen him read it. Would that I had a lover, the master says. His latest has just left him. I can see one fist clenching, the fingers working deep furrows in his thigh. I go to stand beside him, as if my presence could deflect him from his course. Please, master, I beg, don't go again into despair. He has spent the past weeks in that dark hall, slumped in its hard stone chair, punishing himself and us. Better ecstasy than that. No, he says, and his grip relaxes. I imagine the welts beneath his cotton trousers, the bruises they will leave. I must distract myself, he says. I will go to the theater. I will talk. I will laugh. I will smile. He gazes out again across the blushing peaks. And yet, I wish I had someone to laugh with, someone to smile at. Well, we cannot have all we want. He is safe now, I think, and I go to prepare a meal. I will find him again in the hall of longing, or in some byway near it, perhaps in an alcove of yearning or a gallery of ache. As I climb the narrow back stairs, I pass other servants, all quiet and intent on their errands, as I am on mine. We seldom speak, and I do not know their names. As I pass behind the walls of satisfaction, my foot slips, and a chambermaid reaches out to catch me. I draw my hand away, ashamed, but she is as old as I, and there is no pity in her gaze. Her hair is gray like the clouds of longing, and as I look upon it, her eyes widen. I wonder what she sees. I open my mouth to speak, but then I turn away. I am an old man now. In my youth, I kept my passions in check until they left me for other, wilder spirits. The maid and I go our ways in silence. I eat my meal in silence, in the warm staff kitchen, at the little table that is always set. With the master lost in the ways of distraction, I have time. I watch the cooks as they do their quiet work. One stirs a pot of stew, a tasty concoction of roots and sharp spices. He jokes quietly with a flower-handed baker stoking her oven. He warms my soul to see them. The young so often waste their youth, and I have myself for an example. These two are wiser now than I ever was. They are shy to have an audience, but I see their looks, hear their soft laughter, and I rise to leave them be. I make my leisurely way down toward longing, but though I have gone slowly, the master is not here. I wait for some time and even make the long descent to despair, but he is not there, though I search its darkness with careful steps, quartering back and forth with my dim candle across its obsidian floor. I climb the steep steps back from despair, but longing is bare, and I do not hear or feel him near. I know what this must mean, and I am tempted to stop, to rest, to wait, to fail. But I have served the master all my life. It is my life. My duty will not cease because I am tired or selfish. I climb the long, gentle ramp from longing to fulfillment, passing through and past rooms of relaxation and relief. I wonder idly as I pass through tranquility and quietude, whether the old chambermaid cleans these rooms, whether someday we will pass again in one chamber or another. Perhaps we have often done so. The master is not in fulfillment, but I knew that. And though it is the most beautiful of chambers, I pass through its moonlit wooden chairs with barely a glance through the windows to its quiet, dawn-flecked lake. No, the master was in longing, and he has gone out to company. If he has not returned to longing or to despair, there is only one place he can be, and I pass on. The master stands by the wood-framed window of ecstasy, his narrow frame bathed in sweat, a smile across his face like the rictus of lockjaw. Oh, but the world is a beautiful place, he says to the wildflower bouquets of spring. The colors, the rush of life, the flow of nature's grace. He shakes his head, but his smile is fixed, and no mere shake will dislodge it. What have I done, I wonder, to deserve such happiness? That way lies despair, and I know with the certainty of experience that this interlude of ecstasy will be a brief one. Do not say that, master. You, as no other, deserve happiness. I try, but I know he will not listen, cannot listen to other than the voices in his head that tell him otherwise. He is so beautiful, he says, a dancer, lithe as a willow, strong as an oak. He could pick me up with one strong hand. He did so. You are a lucky man, master, and strong in ways that he is not. I know he does not listen. What could he see in me, I wonder? As he speaks, he wipes himself with a soft towel, leaves it to dry on the arm of a chair. The chambermaids will find it. A frail reed with little to offer, a poor artist, a dreadful poet with the voice of a crow. He is already on his way to the door. A good man, I insist, though the tears have already started in my eyes. A hard worker and a kind master, doomed to bounce endlessly from despair to ecstasy and back, and only because he is not strong or handsome, or in fact, very wise. But he is gentle and caring and honest, and someday, if he can only muster confidence, he will find a man who values that. Now, though, I can hear him in the passage. It is no wonder he has not come to call, he says, and then his voice fades, and I must rush to follow. The master has his own ways, fast and sure and painful, but I can only scurry and stumble through the long halls and stairs and byways toward despair. In the narrow path of desperation, I run headlong into the old chambermaid. She catches me again before we both fall. You must not make this a habit, I say, and am shocked to find such wit in my dry mouth. But my courage fails as she drops my arm, and I realize that my tongue has failed me, and that in so many dour and taciturn years, it has lost the knack for banter, has rendered my poor jest harsh and bitter. My face settles back into its familiar, comfortable lines, all angles and ridges. I see the shine in her eyes vanish, but it lingers in the soft silver bird's nest of her hair, and I grasp for something to say. I am Acro, I say, the master's ear. I know, she says, and moonlight glimmers in the windowless passage. I am Lucy, and she rushes away. It is as well, for the master needs me, and I must scamper on my way. But even in these dark lower stairs and alcoves, my heart is light. For once, despair holds no dread for me, and I walk with a quick step toward the master's cold throne. He has not called on me, he says at once, and he has been seen at the berry wreath with Lord Considine, half my age and broad as an ox, but no brighter. He turns his eyes toward the glare of a summer window, and the light shows the tracks of tears down his face. You are intelligent, master, I say, because it is true. There is no sign that he has heard me. There is never a sign. And gracious, and thoughtful, He looks out the window to the burning sun beyond, and out of habit I warn him not to look, to mind his eyes. He wipes a hand over them, smearing the shadows he painted there to make his pale eyes luminous and rich. I will never be happy, he says, and begins to sob. It is my task to listen, not to speak. I have spent my life listening. Not if you act like a child, I say, and wonder how my tongue, earlier so cold and clumsy, has suddenly become so sharp. You are a good man, master, but you seek what you will never find. You eat rich foods and complain of belly pain. You contest at sports you cannot win. You love young men who want only to play. You talk with those who cannot hear. What is this? The master has a card in his hand. He has come. He throws himself from his chair, and I hear his laughter dwindling as he makes his rapid way to ecstasy. I set my foot on the stair from despair to follow, to listen, to be my master's ear, as I always have been, as I always will be. And yet, I wonder as I climb the dark steps, whether the master might be better served by absence, whether, without a willing ear, he might be forced to listen for himself, and whether, doing so, he might hear something. As I pass through the low hall of longing, I gaze across its sunlit mountain peaks and remember youth. I turn away from the window's rosy lure and climb the long, gentle ramp. I will wander the hallways above until I see the glint of bright eyes and silver hair. Then, if she is willing, we will enter my favorite chamber and stand together in the gentle light of dawn. So that's the title story of the collection that just came out. The next one is a much older story from a different collection, Anthology, which is a collection of several collections, if you will. And it's called Spring and the Arachnodactylist. And I wrote this in part to prove to my family that I don't only write gloomy, dark stories. So, Spring and the Arachnodactylist. Long, slender fingers enclosed the book, captured it in a cradle of skin and bone. The book, a paperback space opera in the grand style of Doc Smith, fluttered occasionally in a half-hearted way, but made no real effort to get free. Now being read for the third time, it looked brand new, unmarked, the tawdry cover perfect. The fingers, smudged with ink and occasionally cramped from lack of movement, left black smears along the outer edge of each page, but the rest they treated with elaborate care. These fingers had never broken a spine, never dog-eared a page, never carelessly set a book down in a pool of bathwater. The books were insistent about that. Attached to the fingers, a long, slender body was draped lengthwise on an equally long, comfortable couch. While not athletic, the body possessed a perfectly sound constitution, was capable, given no alternative, of hard physical labor. To its pleasure, alternatives were usually to be found, usually reading. This afternoon, however, the favored alternative lacked its usual compelling power. The draw of the tractor beams, the hum of hyperdrives, even the glowing eyes of a startlingly humanoid, alien heroine held no attraction against the sunshine from the open window and the light breeze with its scent of outside. Sighing in defeat, the young man noted his page, then closed the book and placed it carefully on a convenient table. The book protested, to no avail, prosaic cries fading as the pages closed. The table constituted one of three pieces of furniture in this, the inner sanctum. The second was the couch, positioned by the window for the best light, despite the risk of natural distractants. The couch was held in place against gravity lapses by the carefully disposed reading body. The body's legs were raised well above the head to promote comfort and blood flow. Passers-by occasionally marked the unusual display, framed nicely by the central window pane, of thin, fragile feet above the red fabric of the sofa. The more observant noted the small legend pinned on the sofa below that read, "Pale they were and long of foot." An inside joke by a friend, the feet had long since forgotten the note's existence. Last of the furniture, and placed against the room's far wall, was, of course, a bookcase. Tall and broad, it was nonetheless overfull of mass-market paperbacks, with hardbacks stacked neatly atop it, edges perfectly aligned, the way they liked. Summoned now, the feet lowered themselves reluctantly out of their comfortable frame. The legs, perforce, followed after, and even the hips slowly changed orientation to recognize a new direction as down. The head, conversely, raised on its armatures until it was uppermost. The eyes, pleasant and brown, now closed. Sudden changes were to be handled with caution, the body knew. Rapid motion often led the brain to insist on a sudden showing of kaleidoscopic films, and the demands of projection could starve the support system of infrastructure of power, leading to system collapse. "Right," said the body. "Outside, sunshine, green grass." An opportunity, noted the books, making the best of a bad situation. They put an urgent marker on a thought in the hindbrain and sent it forward for processing. Marlin looked around. Shoes, he thought, important for podal shielding. Sandals, maybe, easily removed for a picnic. Have to get food, he thought. He wandered into the kitchen, gathering smoked tofu, a chunk of jicama, a bottle of water. He stuffed it all into a backpack, added a blanket. He returned to the front of the house for his sandals. A book, he remembered, as thought processing completed. Have to take a book on a picnic. He took a paperback from a stack on the hall table. Maybe two. He took a second, just to be safe. The books celebrated. At last, lightly burdened by food and blanket, the tall, slouching book transporter left the house. The sunshine was bright but welcoming. Birds sang as they vied for mates. Butterflies fluttered, flowers bloomed. Marlin set out for the park. Sitting at last in a rose garden, comfortably ensconced on his blanket, he glanced around. A young blonde lay face up on the grass nearby, enjoying the warm sunshine, and he watched as she adjusted her sunglasses. Good way to read a book, he thought, and turned back to his bag. Without warning, sprinklers rose from the ground and began an aggressive pattern of attack. Slowly at first, they began to turn, their spurting jets reaching further and further with each click of the mechanism. "Shit!" cried Marlin, scrabbling together his bag of comforts. He grabbed his blanket and ran. The blonde, alerted as much by his voice as by the sound of spraying water, leapt to her feet and followed. "Shit," she agreed with a smile as they reached the safety of a path. She twisted her neck to look down at the calves of her jeans, struck by a lucky blast. Marlin chuckled. "Looks bad," he offered. "May need treatment." The blonde smiled at him. She had nice blue eyes, he decided, and the short hairstyle was flattering. Very damsel in distress. "Shall I carry you out or just leave you here and save myself?" "I think I can walk," she replied dryly, but her smile widened. "Just let me lean on your arm." The feel of smooth skin on skin shocked him, drew him out of his shining armor. He opened his mouth, but the words were missing, misplaced on their journey from brain to tongue. The silence grew awkward. "Listen," he managed at last, applying brute mental force. "I've got a little picnic here." He hefted the evidence. "Join me? We could find a dry spot. I've got water," he smiled, "in a bottle." She laughed. "You're on." She held out a hand. "Liz Kalin." He took her hand and shook it. "Marlin Svensson," he said. Her hand was warm, he noted, and her grip was firm. "Marlin?" she smiled. "Really?" "Bastard son of a magician and an ichthyosaur." Her brow creased. "But you can call me Spike," he added, fighting off a sudden desire to run home and read. The brow smoothed, replaced by a crinkle-eyed smile, and encouraging him to press on. I always thought my parents wanted a girl to name after Marlene Dietrich. She laughed. Courage fueled by the wit of 1,000 pulp heroes, he led her to a dry-looking oak. You scout for hazards, and I'll roll out he peered at his blanket, plaid carpet. You're funny, she said, as they sat at last. Spike's rapid repartee, he bowed from the waist, at your service. Comedian by trade, are you? She asked. Professional arachnodactylist, he said, waggling long fingers. What? Arachnodactylist. Someone with long, skinny fingers, like these. He took in her look and added, well, it sounds better than inventory specialist. Something prompted him to add, though that does give me time to read. You are one weird guy, no question about it. So what is it that you read with those long fingers? Science fiction, mostly. A stray thought entered his brain, but he fought off the addendum. Experience had taught that the term fantasy often evoked arched eyebrows and the rapid close of the conversation. Is that what those are then? She motioned at his open bag and the books that poked temptingly out. May I look? Sure. She peered at the two books. You can't go by the covers, he added quickly as her eyebrows started to rise, or the titles. So Thraxus and the Dance of Death is about philosophy, is it? The cover featured a fat man and a statuesque woman in a chainmail bikini, back to back, swords in hand. She put the books down and one slid open with a slick, satisfied sound. It's actually very funny, he said weakly. Unable to stop for some reason, he added, the author is a serious novelist and the chainmail bikini is a joke. He brought his tongue under control at last and trailed off. No point, he thought. Back to his room alone to read. In a light breeze, pages riffled with a curiously contented sound. There was a library, he thought, on the way home, a chance to visit the relatives. I'm more of a music person myself, she replied, startling him out of his reverie. A student now, but a singer someday. Do you like music? I do, he said quickly, clutching at the straw before it floated downstream. Well, I'll sing you something later then. She smiled again and moved closer. I'd like that, he said. And though tempting alternate universes flickered past his eye and scowling aliens chittered threats from the trees, his long fingers reached out to offer a tentative back rub. He had to move the books. Trust love, muttered the Vance section in the deserted inner sanctum to ruin a good story. Nearby, an M.K. Wren trilogy tilted slightly in a smile. That's that.
Thank you. Those were both very distinct and very delightful in their own ways.
Thank you.
We get so much variety at Story Hour, and we find that we like to just take a breath between the readers to help us reset. And now we are ready for more stories. Thank you, Maureen. Our next reader tonight is Meg Elison. Meg Elison is a California Bay Area author and essayist. She writes science fiction and horror, as well as feminist essays and cultural criticism. She has been published in McSweeney's Internet Tendency, Fangoria, Fantasy and Science Fiction, Catapult, and many other places. Her debut novel, The Book of the Unnamed Midwife, won the 2014 Philip K. Dick Award. Her novelette, The Pill, won the 2021 Locus Award. She is a Hugo, Nebula, and Sturgeon Award finalist. She has been an Otherwise Award honoree twice. Her YA debut, Find Layla, was published in fall 2020 by Skyscape and was named one of Vanity Fair's best 15 books of 2020. Her parasocial thriller, Number One Fan, will be published in summer 2022 by Mira Books. Elison is a high school dropout and a graduate of UC Berkeley. Meg, welcome.
Thank you. It's very good to be back.
It is lovely to have you back. I relinquish the microphone to you.
Thank you. The story I'm reading tonight is called The Little God of the Staircase. It is so far unpublished, but I have good luck with stories I read on this show. And there is a content warning in effect for oblique mentions of sexual assault. You've been warned. The Little God of the Staircase. Father didn't like Dr. Mannheim. I knew that. I heard him talking to Mother about it through the wall at night, their room right next to mine. How could analysis cost so much and still not cure me? How was lying on a couch and talking about myself anything more than a fad, this year's poodle skirt? I thought he might be right on the first point. I didn't think this process was doing me any good. Dr. Mannheim's couch was almond green velvet and the room was always too cold. I settled myself down, my back to his silly beard, and set my pocketbook by my hip. The cab ride home was always my favorite part of this appointment, and I carried exact fare, not a penny extra. Mother did not want me lingering in town. But with the lights of early evening sliding past the window, and the quiet inside of the car and the leather seat at my back, I could pretend I was in some other life, headed for some other place than this office, to some other place than my home. Best 20 minutes of my week, hand down. Dr. Mannheim didn't ask questions anymore. He had done that in the beginning to figure out why I had slashed my wrists. He had gotten me to tell him what happened. They had asked me the same questions at the hospital, of course, and I had told it back then, but I knew better now. As my wounds closed up, so did I. In other words, I told him lies. So it was a surprise to me when I heard myself talking about the mask on the staircase. What mask? I couldn't see Dr. Mannheim, but I could sense him shifting forward in his chair to loom over me a little, his pad of paper sliding in his lap, his hands suddenly tense. You said you dreamt about a mask. Tell me about the mask. How do you imagine it? Oh, I laughed a little. I couldn't relax until he did. I waited for the almost imperceptible sound of him settling back in his big leather armchair so that I could breathe easily again. I didn't imagine it. It's real. It's a real thing in our house. Silence. The sound of him lighting his pipe, and then the sweet smell of smoke. Silence. It hangs on our back staircase. It's in the far corner of the house. Mother said that it used to be the staircase that the servants would use when the house had a whole staff. You know, we just have a man and a maid, and the gardener. Anyway, the staircase is always dark. There's a light at the top and the bottom, but the house is 19.2 and there's no wiring there. You know, for electric light. Father brought the mask home from the war, from the Pacific. Well, Mother thought it was ugly, just dreadful, but she didn't tell him that right out. She just hung it up somewhere you could barely see it. I was afraid of it as a child. He didn't ask why. We sat in silence. I was 16. Was I a child still? Nobody seemed to think so, but I wasn't free to take my cab ride anywhere but home. I suppose I was afraid because the face is so fearsome, long and shaped like a canoe. It's got great big eyes, and the lips are almost closed, but you can tell there are teeth behind them. Pointed teeth like fangs, like an animal. I used to think it was going to leap at me the second I turned my back on it. I'd make the turn on the landing and do the last 15 stairs backwards to avoid letting it get behind me. Boy, I'll tell you, I tripped over my slippers doing that more than once. But anyway, it was the kind of thing a baby might be afraid of, not a grown girl. So I put that aside as I grew up. It doesn't bother me anymore. Nothing bothers me anymore. That's how I tell it. Because if I don't, I'll never get out of here. You hear stories, you know, about the girls who couldn't get it together. The ones who talked too much on this couch, they got sent away somewhere, or they came back different, with a funny, faraway expression and not much to say beyond the weather. I was stupid once before. I didn't open my mouth, I opened my veins, but I was still telling. The scars weren't that bad, and I knew better than to open up again. I knew better. Just the kind of thing a kid might be afraid of, you know. I was speaking to the cloud of pipe smoke. That's the stairway where your father died. Dr. Mannheim's voice was quiet, even pleasant. He had been at the funeral, a thin man in a black suit. He had kissed my mother's cheek, and I had to turn away. I had not cried. Yes, that same staircase. Poor father. My voice was sad and sweet, just as I'd practiced. I wish his heart attack had at least come to him in the comfort of his own bed. I hate to think of him falling. I loved to think of him falling. As I went to sleep at night, I thought of the hard corners of those oak stairs, the way the tops jutted out over the falls, thick as thumbs. I like to think of one of them striking him right in the cheekbone and breaking it. I thought of the wood bumping against his ribs like a mallet on a xylophone. I was on the other side of the house in the formal living room when it happened. Mother was entertaining guests, and Father had gone to get something to show them. Vacation slides of our happy family or some trinket he'd brought home from the war. I can't remember. What I remember is the joyous butcher shop sound of the meat and bone of him hitting the floor in 10 different ways before he came to rest on the kitchen linoleum, eyes open and already dead. We ran in to find him face up, the shawl collar of his sweater pulled open as if he'd gone to loosen his tie one last time. I had screamed, but so had Mother and Mrs. Henderson. They all assumed we were screaming for the same reason. Poor Father, I said again. Dr. Mannheim's pen scratched his paper. Did you dream of this mask before or after his death? It must have begun after, I said, false wonderment in my voice. I'm sure I associated it with Father's death, and it frightened me because I thought of him dying beneath it. And your fantasies of your father. Dr. Mannheim's voice was too light, too casual. He was trying to trick me. Did they persist after his death? No, I said. No, I haven't thought about that since I was in the hospital. They took good care of me there, and I felt quite well since. I heard him come forward in his chair again, and I tensed the muscles in my thighs. I'd been doing calisthenics since the hospital. The nurses there taught me that calisthenics were wonderful for nervous energy, and they were right. I'd learned isometric exercises, and I felt much better when I used them. Anytime I wanted to run, and I knew I couldn't, I could use those same muscles as if I were running, but I would go nowhere. It was the perfect regimen for a lady. When you first came to see me, Dr. Mannheim said, his breath tickling the edge of my hair, you told me all about your fantasies. The ones where your father would come into your room in the middle of the night. Your envy for your mother was quite consuming. Your dreams were vivid, intense. You told me all the details, remember? You told them to your doctor at the hospital, but you really trusted them to me. My body was stiff as a board, but my voice was still compliant. Nothing to worry about. Of course, doctor, I've always been honest with you. You were 13 then, just barely entering womanhood. You've grown up so much in these last few years. You're almost ready to move on to an adult life now. I nodded, my neck almost creaking with the effort. I've worked hard to become more grown up and leave childish things behind me. Only children fantasize wildly or do silly things for attention. I'm a grown girl now, and I know better. He didn't come closer, but he hovered. I could smell his aftershave. It wasn't like other times when he told me we were going to learn about transference and turned off the lights in the room and tickled the back of my neck with his beard. It wasn't like the exercises where he pretended to be Father and talked me through my neurotic fixation, my strange dreams. It wasn't even like the days when he used to dangle his watch before my eyes and talk me into falling asleep, and that had never worked. He told me I simply wasn't suggestible. I had apologized for failing that test. It wasn't any of those things, but the same spirit was in the room with us. It was like the sensation of those eyes and the slim green mask on my back as I turned on the landing. Unmistakable and impossible to prove, like so many things in life. I held my breath. I worked the muscles in my thighs, like running in place, like swimming in a dream. Eventually, he fell back in his chair. I don't think this analysis is going well, he said finally. I believe we are at an impasse. I'd like to suggest something different. Oh, what's that? He chuckled. Not to you, my child. I'll suggest it to your mother and we'll see what she says. It's unorthodox, but I believe we can get someplace. And that was our time. I picked up my pocketbook and checked my hat in the mirror. My driver was already waiting for me, having been summoned by Dr. Mannheim's secretary, Maureen. She made sure that I never had to wait. I saw her flaming red hair on my way out, but she was on the telephone and only nodded to me as I passed. Maybe she was the one who had put together his office in such a cold way. I knew Dr. Mannheim was not married. The house had changed since my father died. My mother was different as a widow than she had been as a wife, quieter, less likely to laugh. She was still in morning dress, and I had begun to see streaks of silver in her fair hair. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I came in, and she offered me her cheek. Dinner's at 7, she said almost absently. Dr. Mannheim says he wants to talk to you, I told her, hanging my coat on the hook beside the back kitchen door. Oh? Her voice wasn't suspicious. To this day, I think she knows what happened. I think she was told I was a neurotic child who heard voices or some terrible thing. I think if she knew, she would have hated me, and I never had to bear that. My mother loves me despite all that's happened. Yes, he has an idea of something he'd like to try. I think I'm nearing the end of my analysis. Mother, I'd like to go on some dates with some boys and maybe think about finishing school? She smiled, and I saw how the corners of her eyes were crinkling now, how much she looked like grandmother. I suppose that would only become more true as time passed. I spent 6 wonderful nights alone in my bedroom, sleeping undisturbed and peacefully under the quilts my mother had sewn. My bedroom was cheerful too after father died. Mother and I had started a garden and grew roses. I clipped a few each week and put them in her bedroom and mine in little milk glass vases. For remembrance, she had said, her fingers lingering on the red petals as she stood at her window. Yes, I told her, my voice solemn and sweet, in my head the musical sound of his carcass thumping down the stairs for all eternity. I will always remember. When I was pinning up my hair for my appointment, I heard our maid get the door. Creeping to the upper landing, I heard Mother talking to Dr. Mannheim. I hurried to the back staircase, throwing a look at the long green mask on the wall. The dreams I had had of the mask had always been a little unsettling, but it wasn't just fear, it was something else. Perhaps the best word was expectation. I wasn't afraid of what the mask would do to me. I was more afraid of what it wanted me to do. I turned the corner on the mask, brisk as you please, and put it out of mind. I came to the vestibule in my white dotted Swiss dress and felt Dr. Mannheim's eyes crawl over me. I saw Mother notice it and then pretend that she had not. From what I could tell, this was an essential quality of adult womanhood, so I followed her example. I offered my hand in the manner I'd been taught. Dr. Mannheim, welcome to our home. I suppose this visit is the something different you wanted to try? He nodded, his beard touching his shirt front and creating a flat surface on the underside. He had shaved his cheeks that very afternoon. They were still red from the razor. His shirt was pressed and his collar stays were in. He had put on too much aftershave, and for a moment I thought perhaps he had come to court my mother, the widow. But I knew better. Darling girl, could you leave us alone a minute? Dr. Mannheim was looking at me, but reaching out his hand to my mother. I'd been shooed out of a room enough times by adults to understand. Of course, I'll wait in the parlor. I walked away decorously and sat on the edge of the good sofa, barely resting my weight there. Mother always acted as though the furniture in that room were made of glass. I couldn't shake the habit even when she wasn't watching. Dr. Mannheim walked through the door a few minutes later, alone. Your mother's agreed to leave us alone for tonight's session, he said brightly. She's given the maid the rest of the night off and gone to the market. We have an hour to try something that I think may help you. I worked to control my face. How interesting. How shall we begin? I'd like you to take me to where you made an attempt on your own life, he said quietly. His eyes shone like a cat's in the dark. Where was that? The bath on the 3rd floor, I said at once, beside my bedroom. Lead the way, Dr. Mannheim said. My mother believed this man. She believed he could make me safer so that I'd never be hurt again. She thought his intentions were therapeutic and that he'd leave this house better than he found it. I knew better. I took him up by the back staircase. 15 steps up from the kitchen to the landing in the middle, 15 steps until we reached the mask. I took the first one, gathering my skirts in my hands, and the doctor followed me. Is this the staircase? He asked me curiously as the light from the kitchen faded and the darkness took us. Yes, I said, looking instinctively upward for the shaft of light on the 2nd floor. This is the quickest way. And the mask is here, the one from your dreams. Yes, I could feel him closing in behind me. His heels struck my shin as I continued my measured pace, not running. No reason to run. Show me. We reached the landing in short order. The yellow light slanted down from above, creating a golden diagonal blade of bright on the paneling above the mask. The shadows on the face itself were queer, like afternoon stormlight cutting across a familiar vista and making it strange. The chevrons of its eyelids seemed to be deep relief, the lips colored by the shade of its brow. Even now, it seemed to be waiting for something. The verdigris of its color was almost black in the gathering gloom. Look up at the mask, the doctor said. I stood on the landing and I did look up. I saw the face from my dreams looking back down at me, hung there to make eye contact with someone much taller. The doctor was close behind me, a collection of heat and shapes hovering an inch away from my skin. I could smell the warming wool of his vest. When he spoke, I felt his breath in my hair. Tell me again what you dreamt about your father. Tell me why this mask scared you. When his hands first landed on my waist, I didn't cry out, but I drew my breath in sharply. When he began to pull me back toward him with nightmare slowness, I thought he might be trying to make sure I didn't turn around, that we remained in our Freudian pose that precluded eye contact and kept me talking. As the length of him settled hard against my back, I knew better. I used to pray for my father to die, I said quietly. Yes, he groaned with his face against my neck. Tell me. But I thought that might not be a prayer a girl could say to a Christian God, so I would pray to any God who could hear me. There might be a lot of them, you know. He says, have no others before me, so there are others, right? The doctor said, his hands crawling like crabs over my body. Isometric exercise. I was coiled as tight as a steel wire. Dr. Mannheim shifted against me again, holding me tighter. Tell Daddy all about it, he murmured in my ear. I could take you away from here, you know. I told your mother that your analysis is complete and that I'd like to marry you. You'd be the wife of a respected doctor. You'd have money of your own. You'd be free of this house, these awful memories. Let me take my little girl away from here, away from this place of death. His voice was pleading now, cousining, but with an edge of need. It took a second for the shock to pass over me. Is that what you asked my mother? To make her leave us alone? He nodded and I felt it against my shoulder. She's grateful. She was worried nobody would want you. But I do, child, so much. Look up at the mask and tell me. Tell me you don't want to leave here. I know what I want. I don't know whose face this is, I said, looking up into its impassive, half-closed carved eyes. I don't know the god's name or what sacrifices it might care for. I don't even know if it is a god. It might be the face of some dead comedian. Maybe this is the Jackie Gleason of Melee. You're ready to say goodbye, Dr. Mannheim said. Become someone new. Whatever's inside that mask, I think it heard me, I said, deadly quiet as if I spoke in a chapel. And I bet it'll hear me again. I tore out of his arms then, a single explosion of kinetic energy, a shocking spell break to the moment he thought he could create with a swinging watch, with a vest and a pipe and a gold band and Dr. Freud on his wall. I sprinted up the stairs with home court advantage, knowing my way in the dark. Those stairs aren't treacherous. They're evenly built and they're spotlessly clean. There's no rug on them. The sound of Dr. Mannheim's leather soles was even, rhythmic, and inexorable behind me. I reached the last step before the third floor, just as I heard his ragged breath become laughter. Every girl wants to be chased, Dr. Mannheim said, and the chase only makes capture sweeter. I turned to face him at the top of the stairs, defying Freud and looking him in the eye without couch or mask between us. My analyst's little round spectacles were fogged up where he'd buried his face in the heat of my body. His hair was mussed and his mouth was parted as if he were expecting a kiss. His eyes, though, his eyes are the thing I will never forget. They were just like my father's. Sure, father's were brown and Dr. Mannheim's were bright German blue, but the feeling in them was the same. They both believed they were playing a silly, harmless game. They weren't evil, they weren't wrong. They were simply reaching out to take what was theirs, what they knew they should have. There was no question in them whether I wanted to be part of this. That look held me as nothing at all. I was as inconsequential as, say, a little trinket that a man might pick up as the spoils of war and take home. Something that does not get to decide for itself. I didn't move. I didn't push. I never laid a hand on him and I never had to. At the last step, as we were looking into one another's eyes, Dr. Mannheim's left ankle simply gave out under him. I saw his head dip down as it shot out weakly to one side. I saw his arms pinwheel in the air, grasping for purchase and missing the newel post, missing the railing, scraping once in helpless scrabble against the smooth, dark paneling on the wall. Dr. Mannheim went down hard on his back, the bald top of his head smacking against the corner of the 8th or 9th step below him. Both of them were bloody later, and he slid through his own blood like a toboggan on ice. He picked up speed until he crashed against the wall of the landing just below the green mask on the wall. The impact knocked the mask off the wall and it fell over his glasses, fell down as if to cover him in kisses. I followed him down, my tread light, practically skipping. I had never seen the backside of the mask before. There in the resin that shaped and held it together, I could see the fingerprints of the artist. I blessed those hands across the season unknown to me. I said prayers of thanks to an unknown God, to all the nameless gods, for salvation. I waited until Dr. Mannheim's breath stopped. I collected myself and called the family doctor, whose name was beside the phone in the kitchen. He came right away with his black bag, knocking at the back kitchen door. By then, I had made a good show of looking distraught. I'd found myself a handkerchief and worked up some tears. The doctor felt the analyst's neck, and then he put his arms around me to comfort me. It's just like with your father. Child, I am so sorry. What a terrible thing for you to see. I did not attend Dr. Mannheim's funeral. I took only a few things with me when I left home for college. My trunks had been sent ahead with my clothes in them. It was a good girls' school, and mother had seen to it that I had all the right things to wear to make a favorable impression. She told me she was proud of me, that we had been through so much, and she was so pleased that I could still make something of myself. I kissed her, and she left me alone in my room with my little valise. I put my diary and my milk glass face into it. I thought I might like to have flowers in my dorm room as well. I walked down the back staircase and I found the Green God's mask there, rehung after Dr. Mannheim's body had left in the coroner's van. I took it gently off its nail and I slipped it into my valise, winding it up in a scarf for safekeeping. On the cab ride to the train with the light of the day sliding by, I realized that I might be headed anywhere. I might be on my way into any kind of life I wished. I put my right hand on my valise beside me on the leather seat and drummed my fingers on it. There were bound to be some people who thought they could get in my way, but I knew better. Thank you.
Wow. Well, I think we'll be reading that one somewhere pretty soon.
Of course, I hope. We'll see.
Oh, I'm sure. Damn, that was creepy.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Ah, what a night, Daniel.
I'm telling you,
Also beautifully written
guys.
and also incredibly different.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that sometimes I have to take a breath after the last story as well. It really does. And you know, I think we went back to Morris's story for a bit there. I think my hands became spiders while you were describing the doctor. Gross.
They're both very different stories, but as is nearly always the case, they just work together. The program feels really sort of coherent tonight. Just
Yeah.
kind of how that works.
And I believe there was no collusion this time. I certainly, it's no collusion, not at all this time. But this time. All right, well, folks, we're going to be back next week, and it's going to be different because it's different every week. But it's also going to be similar because we're going to have another 2 writers and another 2 nonprofits. Next week, we have 2 people who are new to Story Hour. We have Carl Dandenell and Izzy Wasserstein. I really recommend going and learning a little bit about them. We have bios and schedules up at Story Hour 2020. Also a good place to pop by the day of, just in case anything strange has gone on and we need to make any changes to Story Hour. And you can watch any programs you may have missed or any favorites that you simply wish to relive at the Story Hour page on Facebook. Meg, Morris, thank you both so much for giving us this hour of stories.
Thank you. It was a real honor. And I do want to say before I go that I love Izzy Wasserstein's work. I read everything she publishes. She is a dynamite storyteller. Definitely show up for her.
We are very excited.
And I want to mention as well that I've published a couple of Carl Dandenell's stories, so you should look forward to those.
Okay, you know, I think this is a first when we've actually had endorsements from the current readers for next week's readers. That's pretty awesome. I like this. I would not mind this becoming a habit, actually. So thank you both. You've both been wonderful. And thank you to my co-host, Daniel Marcus, without whom none of us would be here. And to our frequent hall monitor, Cliff Winnick, there in the background, like a sneaky ninja. And thank you, all of you who came to hear stories, all of you who are watching stories sometime in the future that I can't picture. Thank you for being part of Story Hour with us and helping us spinning the fictive dream. Good night.